Our research is showing that your mother tongue is still the best tool for literacy and learning in the foundation education phases. But in South Africa, take a listen to this stat. Only 2% of books are published in African languages. We've got to ask the question, how is it even possible? Now, Cadbury is teaming up with Nal'ibali and a range of South African authors to create children's storybooks in various African languages. The best part is that you can take part. Let's find out how you can do this from Cadbury's, yes, the chocolate company. They're Langa Khanyile joining us from Johannesburg. Langa, good morning to you. And so Cadbury's, and I think everyone watching knew I was going to do this, you're sweetening the deal when it comes to education in South Africa. But before we talk about how you are doing this, how did you feel as a company when you read the stat 2% of books in South Africa are in African languages, remembering, of course, how important it is for children to learn in their own language?
Just harrowing statistics there, Gareth. And for us, it really hit us that we needed to make a meaningful impact towards this, because when people cannot read, right, they're not able to participate meaningfully in society. And that is why, as a brand that has always cared about bringing people together, we absolutely had to do something about it.
So when we talk about the kind of rollout for something like this, first of all, horrified when I saw that stat, not so much by the stat, of course by the stat, but the fact in 2021, this has never been addressed before. So just tell me a little bit about the company's involvement, why a company that ordinarily deals with sweets for kids is now helping educate kids. Where did the idea come from?
Well, Gareth, Cadbury has a long history of bringing people together and pioneering social impact, right? And I mean, if you look at our history, you can see all the efforts that we've done over time to drive societal change by acting where we can make an impact. And really, for us, this is about partnering with our consumers to create more African language stories and make them more easily accessible to all children. And we're calling the initiative the Cadbury's Read to Succeed initiative. And it's a 3-year initiative which aims to ignite a love for reading amongst kids under 10 years of age across South Africa by making books in their own language more accessible.
Let's talk about Nal'ibali for a moment. It's one thing to try and get young children to read in their mother tongue, but let's be honest, you and I didn't read when we were youngsters unless it was fun, isn't it? It needs to be fun for these youngsters to want to pick up a book, or else it just becomes work, doesn't it? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. You know, unless you can see yourself in the stories, unless the stories are relevant to you, it's not fun. It's just some abstract kind of narrative that you cannot relate to. And a lot of the the children's books that are available in Africa right now, you know, Snow White and Rapunzel, etc., African kids cannot see themselves in these stories, and so they do not develop a love or an interest in reading. And we believe that by creating or helping to create African stories that kids can relate to, that we'll start to endanger a love for reading amongst them.
Now, when we talk about the kinds of content that children are going to be reading, as you say, some books, especially, and let's be blatantly honest about this, some books were written during the previous regime. Is this simply a case of translating those books into African languages, or are these African stories in African languages?
So we're actually wanting to create new stories and new narratives that will be more relevant, not simply just translating old stories. So some stories, I mean, that are still universal and still appropriate for today's times, we'll translate them. But really what we're trying to do is to create new stories that are based on narratives that kids can relate to today. So it's not just about taking old stories and making them available in African languages.
And just before I start,
asking South Africans to partner with us, we're aiming to publish a generous glass and a half, right? 1,500 new stories by 2023. And as you said, we have partnered with Nal'ibali, which is a national reading for enjoyment program that works to spark children's potential through storytelling and reading. And we are calling on all South Africans to help as well. So from the 7th of June, all consumers need, all they need to do is visit cadbury.co.za, and there's a link there to our own words. And we're just asking South Africans to help us translate one word from English into African languages, and then those words then will be used to create wonderful new stories for kids.
And I think it's going to change a generation of South Africans as well. I was about to ask you how are South Africans going to get involved, but Mr. Langa Khanyile from Cadbury, you beat me to the punch. I decided to drink my coffee instead. This is why we're speaking to you. You made sure we get all the information. I think it's a wonderful initiative. Congratulations to you and your team. It's going to really make a difference in South Africa. Foundational education, it's storytelling in African languages, in native languages, your mother tongue. Joining us from Cadbury, Mr. Langa Khanyile, as part of the Nal'ibali campaign to try and improve literacy in African languages here in South Africa for youngsters. Now, coming up